Okay, well, this is something I've not done before. It's a live stream, and the reason I'm trying it here is because I actually have a decent internet connection here. I've struggled to have the proper bandwidth in the Isle of Man, and while I'm in this student accommodation, it's got really fast internet. And here's the odd thing: it's oh blimey, quite a lot of people appearing. That is quite a lot of people appearing unexpectedly. Okay, but here on the student accommodation here, we've got 30 megabit upload, 30 megabit download, and I thought, that's going to be really good for a live stream, and it didn't work. How can you have 30 megabit upload and download, and it doesn't actually, the YouTube app for streaming kept warning me that it was really bad connection, so I had to switch to 4G, and then it works. So this is currently streaming on 4G at the moment, so I'm going to take a look down here, and you can ask me anything, and we'll weed out some suitable questions and answer them live. So let's see. I need to go to, I'm just looking for what I've got here. There are so many comments, it's just actually whizzing across the screen here. Let's see if I can get a proper, something I can actually see properly on the computer down here. All right. So let's, oh, it's not appearing on the computer yet. Oh, that's so, so I'm going to have to do it off the screen. Yeah, okay, so many questions. The microphone is the built-in microphone, by the way. Someone was saying the microphone seems a bit low. It always seems low now. I'm using a Moto G4 phone here, and the Moto G4 used to be a really great, it used to be quite famous for the cameras built in. But since Lenovo took it over, they seem to be not quite on the ball with the software. Someone was asking me, when's the last time I shaved my beard? Now, I've always had a beard from a really young age. It was like, just when I was young, I just wanted a beard. And as, I got older, initially it grew like the chin beard. And as I got older, it grew further and further up because I couldn't grow a moustache at the beginning. But I quite like the long beard. As you get older, it gets longer. And all I really do with this is I square it off at the bottom from time to time. It's kind of styled on Tank Abbott, the wrestler, if you know who Tank Abbott is. It's sort of one of my sort of fighting icons, shall we say. If someone's saying why I'm sleeping, well, I'm quite nocturnal, and the time at the moment is, I don't know what the time is at the moment. Hold on, it's only 11:14 here in Scotland, so it's not that bad. Let's see, more questions. I don't have Fanny Flambeau here, no. Fanny Flambeau still exists. Fanny Flambeau is safely tucked away in the Isle of Man at the moment, complete with explosive charge rammed up her little doll body. Yeah, I'm trying to see, hold on, I'm just trying to see if I can actually get, the comments are absolutely whizzing up the screen so fast at the moment. That I wasn't expecting that. This is an experimental live stream. It's just what happens. So let's see if I can actually get something here. YouTube. I'm just pulling this up, and the computer is completely independent from the device I'm streaming from at the moment, which is the phone. My channel. Looking at my own channel here. It's not even showing my stream. Oh, there it is. Hold on. I'm going to have to turn the volume off for this. This is suddenly going to get very noisy if I don't. That's the volume off. Let's see if I can actually scroll down. Yes, that's better. I can actually now see some of the comments. That's quite good. They really are just blurring up the screen at the moment. Is it going to show me the comments down here? Oh, this is a bit odd. Yeah, this is a learning experience. Oh, someone's saying how old am I? I am 52, born in 1965. Interestingly, it was a good time actually, because when I was quite young, I went through the sort of electromechanical to electronic revolution. Good time, the 1970s, 80s, fantastic. Good time to be alive. This, you know what? I'm going to have to experiment this. The messages, the actual comments are scrolling by so fast, they're not actually, it's not possible to read them. I wasn't expecting this. But hey, that's good. This is obviously going to involve a bit of evolution. I'm looking at the live stream on my computer. Oh, hold on, hold on. Oh no, it's just as bad. They're scrolling by at high speed. Someone's saying turn on slow mode. Is there slow mode? Hold on. I'm just going to check. I'm just going to change a setting on the phone. This might not work. No, it's not working. Hold on. What's this then? No, I definitely don't want dance party images. What about this? Show live chat messages. No, it only lets me show or hide them. That's odd. Slow mode. Can I actually control? I'm not seeing a setting for slow mode here. Certainly in the page itself. Right, I'm going to have to experiment with this a little bit. So you'll have to excuse the slight delay while I'm investigating things here. Okay. Oh, what sparked my interest in electronics? Well, from a young age, I was always into taking stuff to bits, as you know, because I always take stuff to bits. And my mother gave me a little torch bulb and showed me how to connect it across a 4.5 volt battery and make it light. And it evolved from there. I discovered that, you know, you could use wires to connect it, and it moved on to electromechanical things. Someone's saying touch the screen. Is this a good idea? No, touching the screen does nothing. Okay. But it moved on to electromechanical things like relays and solenoids and stuff like that, and motors. And it kind of established the start of a career. When I left school at the age of about 16, I tried to leave school at the age of 15. It turns out you're not allowed to leave school at the age of 15, and they stopped me doing it. But I started an apprenticeship at a company called EJ Steel & Co. Electrical Engineers, and it's kind of evolved from there. It started off, well, that was before the electronic era, really. So as the electronics evolved, they started appearing with some of the stuff we're working with in the steelworks, and you started getting to know what was what. And the early days of electronics were just a bit frightening, actually, because a lot of stuff just went up in flames and went bang. Much like a lot of the stuff I make now, but nowadays I'm doing it deliberately. Back then it was accidental and it was very expensive, but that was the nature of electronics at that time. And it's evolved from there. I started with basic electrical qualifications, and the best way to learn electronics is to pick it up as you go along. There's no other way to learn electronics because it's such a massive field. There's so many areas that, you know, I can never know everything about electronics. A few people have said they're, you know, daunted by, you know, they start learning electronics and it just seems such a big subject. In reality, you just pick up, just use what you know at the time, and anytime you need more information, just go and Google it. You know, it's one of these things that you only need as much information as you need, so to speak, and it just makes it easier. So someone's just saying, how long have I done the tattoo lighting? Well, that's a tricky question. It's over 10 years with PRG, and before PRG, I did bits and pieces with Northern Light, who had the contract before. Notable differences. Northern Light used to do it in the style of an actual full installation, a full electrical installation, like a permanent one every year. So there was an awful lot of work. It literally took them months to do the installation. PRG is different. PRG, if you look up prg.com, you'll see that if you look up PRG, you'll see they're really big in this sort of entertainment and touring industry, and because of that, they've got all the gear just to simplify it. It's like electric Lego. You basically get 400 amp feeds and loops that you plug into the distribution equipment. I shall make a video showing this because it's interesting. But everything just is modular, so the installation is really extraordinarily fast. It's not like it used to be at all. It's quite interesting. It's intriguing the way it all goes together, and it's all fairly safe as well, just by virtue of the fact that the electrical technology has evolved in the entertainment industry. Someone asking me if I did lights for a Manchester live concert. I did not do that. Someone asking if I'm Scottish or Manx. there's a Manx connection to my parents, but I was born in Scotland. I was born in East Kilbride, and then moved into Glasgow. And latterly, I moved to the Isle of Man to look after my mum. YouTube Live is awful. It's better than things used to be. It's worth a go. You know, it's the easiest way to do it here because certainly using this computer, it didn't seem to do an awful lot. The phone seems to be a good option. What do I drive? I've always driven vans. My first van ever was a Ford Escort van. A really old, battered Ford Escort van. Petrol engine, which was very unpredictable in the winter. It involved lots of tweaking to keep it going. The second vehicle was a Ford Fiesta van that was diesel, and that was just that. It was an Fourth Port Authorities. It was a vehicle that it didn't even have a tax disc when I got it because it had always been a vehicle that operated in the ports, the sort of docks, and that lasted me a long time. That was a great wee van. And latterly, I got myself a transit van, a Ford Transit van, the first vehicle I ever owned from new. And Ralph, my brother, he has that van now because it just works better for the fact that he's got a business. Ralph is an embalmer. His job it's in the funeral industry, and it involves preserving dead bodies. It sounds a bit morbid and creepy. It involves pumping liquids into bodies to preserve them if they're going to be stored for any length of time. Very weird. Not a job that I'd choose myself. It's disgusting. But Ralph makes a decent living embalming bodies, so he ended up with a van. So let's see. What did I think about Scottish independence? That's a kind of political question. My own view was that every government of every country tends to go rotten after a while. It tends to get too many people with vested interests. And my view in Scottish independence, I didn't really want to break up Britain. I wanted to get rid of the current English government, which is rotten to the core. Because that would be better for England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales. It would be better for them all. And the closest thing we could have done was if Scottish got independence, it would have let us prove that, we can do it without needing Westminster government. That was my approach on it. So, right. Let's see. Pop-out chat, toggle timestamps. A few of you are mentioning a slow mode. I'm not getting any indication here. I'm going to have to do a bit of research. It's experimental. Do I have any kids? No, I do not have any kids, unless you count stray cats as kids. There's some very weird messages coming up. No alcohol tonight. No alcohol tonight. That is incorrect. It's cream soda with whiskey in it tonight, which is quite nice. What's the biggest explosion I've made? Was that electrics or electronics? I've made lots of explosions. Some of them deliberate, some of them not deliberate. I did mention in another video, my biggest explosion was with a huge refrigeration control pack. When I poked something I shouldn't have poked, and it caused an avalanche effect that blew an awful lot of stuff up. Can I explode in your ass? No. What other YouTubers am I a fan of? I like the YouTube channels that involve people in their workshops taking stuff to bits. I mean, that's basically what mine is. And I watch EEV blog. I watch Julian Eilert. Connor Wolf. He doesn't put a lot of videos up, but when he does, it's just taking stuff to bits. It's good. Definitely Ave. DeResta, Jimmy DeResta. That's good. Because he's got quite an interesting style. It's just making stuff all the time. I do watch, someone just asked if I watch John Ward. I do occasionally watch John Ward. Some of the videos he does, they're very down to earth, and some of them are very interesting. One that comes to mind is that he blew a myth out the window, whereby if you have a phase and neutral going into, or multiple phases going into a distribution board, and you don't put them through the same hole that causes eddy currents that heat the metalwork up, he basically got a welder and passed high current AC through a cable that was looped through two holes in a distribution board, and there was no noticeable heat other than the heat coming from the cable itself. When was my first electric shock? That was probably me poking around with, I think it was an electric buzzer. And I discovered the hard way that when you break an inductive circuit, it causes a high voltage spike. And it was quite a frightening experience. When you first get electric shocks, it is, your first electric shock, you won't forget it because it was like really, it's horrific. If you've never experienced it before, there's nothing quite like an electric shock. And after you've had a few, I want to point out you cannot make yourself immune to electric shocks. You can't become indestructible with electricity, but the more you understand what happens, you get electric shock and how you can avoid getting them, providing a route to, from a live wire to earth, the more you can protect yourself from a hazardous shock. And also, after a few, you know what's a good shock and a bad shock. Is there such a thing as a good shock? Probably. But you get to know how to avoid electric shock, which is the most important thing. Someone says, well, a few of you have asked, do I watch Photonic? Yes, I do. I know Andy, and his channel is just the most violent electrical YouTube. It's. I could even start to get close to Photonic's electrical violence. It's great. Electroboom, that's also good. Electroboom is a really talented electronic guy. He really knows what he's doing, but he also knows how to sort of play the Joker card on YouTube. That's the secret of his success. It is all sort of explosions. Oh, and of course Techmoan. Techmoan, I started watching Techmoan because of his video camera reviews, and I thought they were pretty good. He had so many deep reviews of these cameras that answered all the questions you'd want to ask, which made them very long reviews, but well worth watching. And I love watching his really vintage audio equipment. That's great. Colin Furze, yes, I like Colin's channel. He really is, again, he's playing the YouTube card very well. But, the stuff he builds is amazing. If you've not seen Colin Furze's channel, it's well worth looking at. It's just ridiculous. It's just making stuff so quickly into this sort of massive scale. Is that a dildo on the shelf behind me? I'm not aware of any dildos in this room, but I'll check later on to see if someone's planted a dildo in my room, but it's unlikely. Cody's Lab. Cody is one of the best channels on YouTube. I love Cody's videos. They're doing things like drinking cyanide and then describing the symptoms of what happens. It's ridiculous. And some of the experiments he does are so like you're going, oh, even I wouldn't try those experiments, but they're so good to see them done. It is really, really good. Post-apocalyptic inventor, yes, I do occasionally watch his channels. Now, why did I decide to do YouTube is one of the questions there. Well, I use YouTube as my main entertainment, and I don't watch TV anymore. It's all YouTube because everything on YouTube is aimed exactly at what you want, because you look for it, you find it, it's there. And I was watching all the existing electronic channels and enjoying them, and when I moved to Isle of Man, I was setting up my workbench, and I thought, now's my chance to put a camera in a sensible position on it while I've got a nice clear bench. And I designed the whole bench and lighting around putting a camera up there. I just, initially, I didn't think the channel would be a huge success like this. But I originally made it just to basically give back to YouTube what I was taking off YouTube by watching those videos. And obviously, you guys love watching stuff being taken to bits. I mean, who doesn't love stuff being taken to bits? And it's been a huge success. Oh, right, songs. Yeah, I've put a couple of tunes. I do have one in the pipeline, but I find it difficult to do the right sort of voice for it. It's a bit morbid and dark. But it's quite interesting. But that'll come out when it comes out. It's not really anywhere near completion yet. Things like the shitty pink USB charger from China song, that just happened really quickly. The Too much YouTube, no time for sleep took a lot longer. So it's not something that's going to happen an awful lot. I just occasionally get the urge to put down some music and then it happens. Um, no, I'm not Big Show. I have to say that Big Show is another of my favourite fighters. I like fighters. I liked Kimbo Slice. It's kind of sad that he's now passed away, but I do have a sort of like, shall we say, a soft spot for the sort of really brawlish, the brawlers, the fighters that well, just fight. Yeah, big guys. More cowbell? Yes, you can't get enough cowbell actually. There's definitely room for more cowbell. Do I play any instruments? I used to play the recorder. It's a bit twee and tame, but I used to be able to read sheet music and play the recorder. I can't do that now. If I picked up a recorder, it would probably sound terrible. Um, but it's easier to generate music. You don't need keyboards and synthesizers. The easiest way to make music now is on the computer. Um, Favorite food? What is my favorite food? Trashy food, I'm afraid. I have very low expectations for food. If I go to, I don't like going to restaurants. I don't like being served. I'd rather go to a fast food joint. But generally speaking, while I'm here at the Ember Tattoo, I will be eating at Subway every day, either the sandwich or the salad. It's just my preference. Computers, is there anything they can't do? Well, they're getting better. There are things they can't do, but you know what? They're definitely getting better thanks to some of the weird stuff that Google's doing. What was my favourite teardown? Uh, my favourite teardown is, because there are a few of them, are the one where I learn. And when I'm making these videos, I sometimes open things up and I discover things that I wasn't expecting, and I research on the internet, and I actually learn quite a lot from my own videos in making them. They, you know, so the best teardowns are the ones that have really weird and really clever circuitry that I actually have never seen before, and that is inspiring, because sometimes I'll blend that into future projects. Because I've always had a thing, when I design projects, I like to make things minimalist. If I can squeeze a lot of circuitry into a tiny chip with a really tight piece of machine code, then that's good. Am I wearing pants? I'm wearing my shorts at the moment. Yes. One of my coworkers was saying, "Have you ever made a video at your bench in your underpants?" And I'm afraid that I have. In a really hot summer, I did. That's just atrocious, isn't it? But not naked, owing to the fact that there are windows and people could see me, and that's probably a bad thing, really. Favorite data book? One of my favorite books in the digital era was the CMOS cookbook. And now CMOS, if you're these days, we tend to just think of electronics as like microcontrollers or Arduinos and things like that. And there was a time when in the 80s that integrated circuits, you designed stuff based around discrete circuitry, or you used logic chips like the CMOS 4000 series or the TTL SIM 400 series. And one of my favourite books was the CMOS cookbook, which was just massive. It was really thick, massive book, which just had data on every single one of those chips. And when you wanted to build a circuit, you had to build it as almost like electronic Lego. And I look back at some designs I did. A circuit board about that size, stuffed from one end to the other tightly with chips. And you think these days I could do that with a PIC microcontroller. I'm seeing lots of asshole references here about as in do me up. Yes, no. But yeah, that's an interesting twist. Favorite music. For me, my era of music was the dance music when dance music started coming to the charts, and the first one that really took off was Steve Silk Hurley, Jack Your Body. And from that, it went through the whole dance era. Now, keep in mind that up to about the 1980s, electronic music was really rare. And then suddenly, electronic music happened, and all the arcades were happening, and all this sort of 8-bit type music was coming out. And, it just seems like just mediocre these days. It's just another type of music. But that time, it was a completely new sound. It's a sound that had never been heard before in music, and it was just a radical time. Pump up the volume, and even things like Technotronics, Pump Up the Jam, and just all these electronic-y tracks, they were just really good at the time. It was great. Someone's just said electronic book recommendations, and my answer to that is none, because all the information you need on electronics right now is in front of you. Google, or find, if you're getting into electronics, take a look for the electronic basic websites and find one that you just click with. In the past, I learned electronics off electronic magazines, and they were more common back in the past before we had the internet. And the advice to MD getting into electronics was get the magazines, read about them, and just play about the circuits and experiment. And that was the best way to learn. I wish I'd had access to the internet now, especially in the early days in the electronics and the industrial electronics. The internet did not exist. If you got a circuit board with a chip with a random number on it, you couldn't just type that into Google and find it. It was horrific finding spare components in the early days. Now with Google, you just, if you find a circuit board with an unusual chip in it, you can generally track that down on the internet or just ask people. Worst accident I've ever had. One of the worst things I've done to myself, I did it just last year. I went down so heavily on my foot that I actually snapped a bit of bone off my ankle with a tendon still attached. That's vile. Yeah, it still hurts. But accidents? Have I ever had a huge work accident? Lots of small work accidents, maybe. No car crashes. I can't think of any major accident I've had. Favourite beer. Now here's the thing, I prefer Alcopops like this, which is the cream soda and a dash of whiskey in it. But if I had to choose a style of beer, it's IPA. And if you've seen the recent video, it shows we made an IPA, but we couldn't decide which beer to make. And we ended up choosing, some of us wanted a dark beer, some of us wanted a light beer. Previously we'd made some beers that were so dark and bitter they were actually pretty unpleasant. But the beer we decided to make this time was a sort of compromise. It's an IPA, but it's a dark one with it's a sort of in-between beer. Someone was asking me there, have you ever worked with tube equipment? Now in the UK we call tubes, the glass vacuum tubes, we call them valves. It's not my era. I know the basics. Well, keep in mind that some tubes still exist. I suppose a need indicator is a tube. There's one video that is coming up at some point in the future once I've roughed up some circuitry to drive it. But it's a tube that Otis developed. Well, they based it on a standard tube, which was basically a latching neon tube. But they adapted it, and I'm talking before I was even born. 1964, I think they brought it out. They actually brought out touch buttons. And we take touch buttons for granted. I mean, you reach out to the computer or your tablet or your phone and you just touch the screen. But back in the electromechanical and tube era, that did not exist. So Otis introduced this amazing thing because they were trying to make, when Otis were still inventive with their elevators, they really pushed the board of technology. And one thing was this tube that was used a touch button, and basically it was a large neon lamp that was kept just below its striking voltage with a DC voltage and across it, and they superimposed an AC voltage at reference to ground. So when you touched it, you raised the voltage capacitively of that tube and caused it to strike over. At some point, I will make a video about that, but I want to make it. I want to get. I want to present the tube properly and make sure that I don't damage it. Favourite whiskey. Now, my favourite whiskey is generic supermarket whiskey because it's always very consistent. It's cheap, very affordable, and it always tastes just like whiskey should to me taste. But having said that, I know my brother Ralphie has higher expectations of whiskey, but to me, just ordinary stuff is good enough. Favourite magazine? In the past, the British electronics magazines, Practical Electronics, Everyday Electronics, Electronics Today International, and Elector, the European magazine. I used to pretty much get all of those, but favourite magazine now? Again, none, because ultimately the internet is, everything is on the internet. The volume's too low. I tested the volume, it seemed quite loud here. It might just depend. I know my voice is boomier than most voices, and sometimes if you've got a device with a small speaker in it that isn't capable of the bass of your voices, it comes out a wee bit quiet simply because it can't recreate the bass. So if you're getting an echo, I'm not sure why you'd be getting an echo. I've not got an audio output here, so all I'm hearing is my own voice. There shouldn't be an echo. The next meetup will be in Edinburgh, but I'm going to have to work something out. We're still finalising the load-in of the tattoo show, so there's still a bit of work to do in that, and then troubleshooting. I've been fixing lots of lights, getting them ready as spares. Generally speaking, we get some spare lights supplied with the rig, all the stuff that comes out. But initially, there will be one or two give problems, and we take them in and swap them out for the placements. But we have to get them fixed as quickly as possible, so we've always got spares. But the meet. Once that's settled down, I do intend to plan a meet somewhere in Edinburgh, but so many people turned up to the Glasgow one that I'm thinking, where can I actually hold this in Edinburgh? Edinburgh is a big place, but you can't just pile into an establishment like a pub and just have hundreds of people turn up. So I'm thinking, since the Fringe tends to have these big open sort of pub areas designed to cater for large groups of people. So hopefully we can work out a way to fit that in that suits us time-wise, but isn't at the peak of busyness, so to speak, so we can actually commandeer a large amount of this area. One of the questions that is popping up is, am I gay? Well, the media presents this very weird image of gay, in the sense of they always go for the extreme examples, and technically speaking, I am gay, but I really don't fit the gay stereotype. I'm biased towards male stuff. I like, I always choose the most dangerous jobs, the most sort of violent jobs, because I just like industrial stuff. To me, that's the sort of, it's this sort of bear thing, I guess. It's just there's this whole image. I'll make a video about that some other time. It's a really complex subject, but suffice to say that a lot of the people you work with are probably in the same boat, that there's just, it's a complex subject. It really needs its own video. So I'll make that some other time. Favorite electrical or electronic component these days? Well, anything that lights up, but you know what? Microcontrollers are great because they can do so much. And you look at things like how it's evolved. That kids who get used to things like Arduinos, it's just if they learn Arduino at a young age, it feels like it's a natural thing. They get used to using and programming. Certainly, when computers first appeared, I was young when computers first appeared. My first ever computer was a ZX81 in 1981, and I just took to programming instantly. I was taught in a Krememco Z2D. There was an incident with that, but that's in another video that I've already covered. The one where I got accosted by the military police after a little incident. But I found it, when I was young, I found it really easy to pick up programming. The ZX81, the ZX81 was my first computer that I owned. Then I got a ZX Spectrum, and then Sinclair QL, which was just an amazing computer, really complex and structured programming language. And then my first ever PC, which was a 386 based computer. Quite a, when you go from using say a home computer like the Spectrum, and you switch to the PC for the first time, that was quite a big jump because it was all command line interface with disk operating system at that time. So workshop tour, you keep asking for a workshop tour, and there's a certain element of shame here because my workshop is so cluttered, and I know many other people's workshops are cluttered, but I mean really cluttered, as in stuff piled high on the floor. I really should at some point do that. Why have I gapped my front teeth? Yeah, that's a mixture of running into metal structures at work accidentally and getting my head kicked in occasionally, and the fact that here in Britain we don't tend to we don't put so much importance in the perfect teeth that other countries do, but certainly some fighting may have been involved in this. That, you know, occasionally you get punched and kicked and you smack your face off metalwork, and yeah, teeth fall out. Yeah, it happens. Raspberry Pi. I keep toying with the idea of a Raspberry Pi, but again, it's like I've played with Linux, the Linux operating system in the past, and you know, it's interesting that I always end up coming back to the computer. For control applications, the Raspberry Pi is interesting as a little control computer. I like that idea. But yeah, Raspberry Pi or Arduino, things I really need to spend more time playing around with. Someone's saying cut the beard. No, absolutely not. The beard is, I like the beard. I always like beards. It's just part of me. More questions about electric shocks. Yes, I've had electric shocks. Lots of electric shocks. Some slightly tingly, and somewhat more. I've already mentioned my worst ever electric shock was, unfortunately, in front of lots of people when someone had serviced a control system with a metal case, and the circuit board, the live, neutral and earth of the supply went onto the circuit board, and then there was a brass spacer that coupled it onto the case, and plastic spacer that kept it away from the case. And someone who had serviced it just left out half the plastic spacers and the brass spacer. So what actually happened was, as I was working on an automated barrier gate, as I pulled the control box out, it just suddenly became live at 240 volts, and I felt the current lump across the chest. It was very exciting. Not really want to repeat again. Any big projects coming up? I can never predict what projects I'm going to do. I'm not great at huge, massive projects. Usually what happens is I get an idea and then it evolves, and it just sort of, if it really takes my fancy, I'll just like really get deeply into it. Lasers, I do quite like lasers. My first laser was a helium neon laser, which I had to build from scratch with multiple mains voltage transformers connected in a combination of, you know, the low voltage output of one transformer feeding the inputs of the secondaries of others to actually step the voltage up, and then a capacitive voltage multiplier to get the strike voltage. What do I have for breakfast? Well, rather stereotypically, because I'm Scottish, I do actually eat porridge, but not the boring porridge I used to get when I was young. It was disgusting. It was like porridge oats with salt and then you sprinkled sugar on top. No, I generally mix it with like fruit and sweeteners and creamer to make it creamier, and just make it sort of, yeah, nice, edible. Do I have a drone? The only drone I've got is a little tiny toy drone. I do quite fancy the idea of a bigger drone, particularly one of the racing drones, and I like the idea of the one with uh, the visor, so you can actually see the sort of first person view, so to speak. But that'll happen one day when I get into it. Although I should do it soon before they sort of ban them or clamp down them, make them so restricted. Am I a radio ham? A lot of people ask if I'm a radio ham. I looked at that when I was younger, but was put off by the fact that they were quite strict and they wanted you to memorise Morse code before they'd consider giving you a license, and that bit always put me off, so I didn't. Tesla coils, I've never built an actual Tesla coil, but I went through a spell when I was young of building high frequency inverters, basically simple feedback step up transformers. And the best one I built was based on a ferrite rod with enough windings to light about 8 feet of neon tube from a single 1.5 volt D cell. The problem with winding your own transformers like that is when you go to too high a voltage, it can actually arc across between the windings. So you can spend like a whole evening winding a coil and then it just burns through straight away. Also, another thing I discovered was RF burns at that point, the sort of really high frequency punching through the insulation, and then sort of the first thing you know is smoke coming off your fingers. Quite exciting. Yes. But the inverters, I played with them a lot. Railguns, never really experimented with railguns too much. I've played about with capacitive discharge systems, but not a railgun as such. Would be quite interesting though, but living in a flat in Glasgow, there's not much scope for firing missiles. And I envy people like Cody who have basically got the entire neighbourhood to fire explosives and projectiles, and he can really blow stuff up without worrying about it going through someone else's window, basically. Have I visited the Laxey Wheel? The Laxey Wheel, for anybody not knowing what that is, I used to always stay in Laxey. That's where my grandparents lived, in the Isle of Man. And there's this huge, really massive water wheel called the Lady Isabella. And it used to be used to pump out water from the Laxey mines. And it does... it still works. They keep it in fully working condition, and you can actually climb a spiral staircase and stand on top. It's a bit psychedelic because when you stand on top, you're looking down where the water pours onto the wheel, and the wheel is spinning underneath you. It makes you feel like you're actually spinning over the top of the wheel. It's pretty freaky. If you missed the start of the live stream, it will be going on it will be permanently available. You can view it from the beginning. Once the stream is finished, I believe YouTube it processes it and then it will go up as a video. Now, someone's saying, what's the broadband like in Isle of Man? It's terrible. It really is. Where I live, it's in the dark ages, but they seem to be addressing that. When I finish this job and I get back over to Isle of Man, I'm going to be using a new 4G service, so hopefully that will be better. And things like this live stream, hopefully that will happen more, although they are capping it. They're giving you a portion, so I'm going to have to be careful how long can stream for. It's going to be done in small portions. Someone's saying, that Manx Telecom are not really the greatest. It's a bit of a monopoly in the Isle of Man. It's a relatively small island, so communications, you're very restricted, and the cost of them are high. Solar power. I love solar panels. I mean, solar panels, power banks, water turbines. It seems to be built into humans that we like things that are a source of power. Something that stores power. I'm looking around and see if I've got something here or not. Oh yeah, I know what I've got. Things like a little power bank like this. This Brunton, is it? Brunton. I've always kind of liked power banks, and Julian Eilert, he kind of hoards them in a way, and I kind of hoard power banks too and keep them topped up every so often, although you're not supposed to keep them topped up to the hilt if you're storing them. But the whole idea of having an independent source of power seems to, it's like, I suppose it's the prepper scene, isn't it? People are already always ready for some apocalypse that is probably never going to happen. But power banks and solar panels, yeah, it's a useful little thing to have. It's quite nice when there is a power outage and you can actually crack all these things out and actually use them for what they were intended for. Someone's saying, what do I think of Elon Musk? He's a really interesting person. He's got there. Nothing seems to hold him back. For those who don't know this, Ellen, who am I getting the name right? I think I get the name right. The guy who is behind Tesla motor vehicles, and the new his new business called the Boring Company, which is he just wants to drill tunnels underground really fast, and of course the his rocket system. I can't remember the name of that. That he can fire rockets up, deliver payloads into orbit, and then land the rockets for reuse again. It's pretty impressive. SpaceX, that's the one. He just nothing holds him back. It's almost like a modern day Tesla. I'm not sure. I don't know if he's so much into actually developing the technology, but he's got that motivation. And keep in mind that I think that where he got his money in the first place, he was one of the founders of PayPal, and it's like, yeah, PayPal is just like the internet financial system. So that's quite major. The Hyperloop transport system, which involves vacuum, a modest vacuum in a tube so they can fire trains through them at high speed. Ever thought what would happen if it broke down in the middle and you're like miles away underground and something goes horribly wrong? That could be a bit freaky. But yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, someone just compared him to Tony Stark. I'd say slightly less technical, but he's definitely a Tony Stark. He's an Iron Man in the sense that he's got that motivation. He just seems to work all the time. Someone was asking about Ashen's. Yeah, Ashen's channel's good. I quite like Stuart Ashen's channel. It's strangely comforting for some reason. It's just nice watching him just playing about the stuff or doing the taste tests and stuff that I probably wouldn't do a taste test on. The 100-year-old eggs that are 100 years out of date, for instance. Yeah, that's quite interesting stuff. What's the future of energy generation? Well, you know what? In Scotland, we generate a very large portion of the power, but with wind turbines now. And certainly, where I stay in Glasgow, if I look out the window on one side, I can see turbines in the distance. If I look out the window on the other side, I can see turbines in the distance because I'm up quite high in a hill. And they always seem to be moving. Scotland is always quite stormy and windy. So we have, in the last year, we managed for the first time to generate more power with wind turbines than we actually used. Lived in Glasgow. Someone was saying, do you live in Glasgow? I used to live in Glasgow. I live in Isle of Man now. But I stayed in Glasgow for about 25 years. Love the place. Glasgow is like Gotham City. It's like the real Gotham City. It's like this weird and slightly corrupt, well, it's got a corrupt council. It's got the usual baggage that goes with the city, but it's got so much character. It's full of these weird buildings with big statues on the side and dangerous Victorian parks where people die. It's a fantastic place. It's great. Do I like Lego? I mean, who didn't like Lego when they were young? I used to try and build coin operated vending machines out of Lego. They didn't work too well. It's not really optimized for that. Metamecano was pretty good though. Motorized Metamecano mechanisms for vending stuff. Vending again because I had a slight obsession with automated gaming equipment and the slot machines, arcade games, and vending machines. They were just great. I just love stuff like that. Someone asking if I'm superstitious? Not really. No, I've never really been superstitious. I think that goes with religion, and I'm not a very religious person, so that's that. Someone's saying I'm tearing down a cheap milling machine. I'm quite tempted by some of those milling machines they sell on eBay. The Chinese seem to be producing a lot of really interesting industrial stuff, and when you look at many of the videos on YouTube, they look great. They really do look like fantastic little machines. Obviously, when you buy from China, you just don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes you might get something with really loose bearings, and it might be unrecoverable. But they seem to be getting their standard up quite a lot. Many of the machines I see being reviewed by enthusiastic home engineers, they look really good. 3D printers, some of them that are being imported now are pretty good as well. They're quite neat. Yes. A lot of people saying, "Do I watch Ave?" Yes, I occasionally chat with Ave by email as well. 'Cause, it's quite. I like Ave's channel. It is. A lot of people say it's the engineering equivalent to my channel. It feels like that. It is just me and Dave bumbling around in our workshops, isn't it? It's just a sort of nice thing. What's my favourite lighting effect? Oh, decisions. So many lighting effects to choose from. The classic moonflower it's one of the simplest lighting effects, but these days it would probably be an intelligent moving light. Back in my fairground days, one of my favourite lights was an SGM Plus, which was a moonflower but with a cinema lamp in it. And it was a proper, what was it again? I can't remember. HMI 575? But this thing, people thought it was lasers, thought it was like a multi-head laser unit. It was a moonflower, but it had a really massive optical path. And when you've got a large optical path, you get a lot more efficiency in the light. But the SGM Plus was fantastic. It was basically a moonflower with that really high power projection lamp, and then a pan and tilt, very simple pan and tilt mechanism based on standard geared motors. And it also had, for the colour filters, it had really huge dichroic discs that were raised and lowered on geared motors like a semaphore. It was a really amazing effect. Great stuff. Let me think. What's the most badly built piece of equipment? Yeah, there's so much bad stuff out there. Even high profile stuff that should be good, but a good example, the supermarket barrier gates. You know when you go into a supermarket and they quite often have these little barrier gates that as you walk up to them they sort of swing open in front of you, and the whole point of those is that you can push a shopping trolley in but they close. If you try pushing a shopping trolley out, they'll close and stop you going out. And if you force them open, an alarm will go off. And there was a brand that I used to do maintenance on called Wanzel. It was a German one, and it was beautifully engineered. It was all custom castings, and it was just really well designed, the mechanism. So it had a super simple geared motor that would wind the gate open, but also at the extremes of travel, it would physically lock. But it was ruined by the electronic control system. Somebody had designed a computerized controller based on a Z80, and it crashed all the time. And when it crashed, unfortunately, there were two motors in the shaft. There was a left-hand synchronous motor and a right-hand, and they both drove onto the same shaft. And when it crashed, it would turn both the motors on. Both the motors would be fighting against each other, and then they'd burn out and they'd blow up the control board. It was just endless problems with the electronic control system. And that was just one part of the barrier gate. The mechanical side, it was superb, but let down badly by electronics. So Wanzel are still about. I wonder when they realised that that electronic era wasn't their best. I'm glad they're still about, because the stuff was really well engineered. It was just let down badly by the electronics in that instance. Any fringe recommendations? Now, at the moment I'm in Edinburgh, and the Royal Edinburgh Military 2 runs during the fringe, and it's just solid. It's just massive quantities of acts. But to be honest, I quite like the atmosphere of Edinburgh during the fringe, but I don't often go to the performances. I'm not actually into being in a crowd, into an audience. So I couldn't recommend any particular one. It's very much a matter of taste. I do go to the two quite a lot, but that's because I've got no choice. And I'm backstage, so I'm not trapped in the audience, so to speak. But yeah. So that the fringe, it's definitely worth going to, but keep in mind that if it's the time when Edinburgh's busiest, and as with most supply and demand things, that's when the price of accommodation goes through the roof. How tall am I? I'm 6'4" tall. Not sure what that is in metric measurements, but 6'4", 6'4". And just before MD asks, I'm 250 pounds, which is about 17.5 stone. Do you use baby? Is my face really that shit? I don't use baby oil on my face. I think it's just the fact. I've got an interesting LED here that it's a LED light that is. Oh, blimey, that's a. I didn't realise it wasn't up at full. It's a dimble LED light. This whole accommodation is full of LED lights, and the one in the bedroom above me here, every so often it goes into little bursts of flickering. I think there's an LED bond failing. I've already had the cover off it, as you could probably guess. I'll probably take it off the ceiling and we'll do a video about it at some point. But it's a circular light, and it's got a ring of LEDs round the outside on tape, and the power supply in the middle. And you can't just take the cover off and change a lamp. You have to change the whole fitting if it goes wrong. And I'm guessing they're probably having a modest number go wrong. You know what, I'm going to keep an eye out for the electricians here, the maintenance electricians, and ask them what their LED lighting's been like for reliability, because it would be quite interesting. They've got a lot of the LED floodlights outside, which is quite nice. They light a lot of trees around this area. Someone's saying, favourite PIC microcontroller. Favourite PIC microcontroller is PIC12F629, I use a lot of them. And the PIC16F627A, which is a lot more pins. My brother, Ralphie, he's my only brother, just me and Ralph, that's it. Do I have any plans of coming to Australia? I've been in Australia. When my mum started developing the signs of Alzheimer's, we took her lots of holidays. And one of them was to Australia. We went to Perth and Melbourne. Kind of Perth, I really liked what's the name of that bit of Perth that is over the water? It's a sort of the dock side of Perth. Can never remember the name of that. But it's sort of like, it's almost like a holiday sort of area of Perth with arcades and stuff like that. I quite like that. And we also went to Melbourne. Melbourne was pretty good too. I particularly like Luna Park. That was obviously, I like this fairgroundy type stuff. Also Victoria Market in Melbourne. I brought myself back some proper hard yakka overalls there, because I kind of like the Australian overalls. They're quite an interesting hybrid between American and British overalls. DEF CON. I was invited to DEF CON, but because DEF CON, I think, does it happen at the same time as the Edinburgh Tattoo? I think it does clash. So I was invited and I had to turn it down because it would have been quite nice, but it didn't really happen as such. So recommendations for food in Edinburgh. As I say, I go to Subway. We do occasionally go to restaurants as a group. The crew we get on really well together, so we socialise out with work as well. So we do occasionally go to various restaurants, but it's not that often. So I couldn't tell you what the best place is in Edinburgh. Do I speak German? Sadly, no. There are a few languages that would be really interesting to learn to speak. My main other language is French, but only when I have to. It's one of these things that, it's when you get thrown in at the deep end. When I worked at Disney, they basically just threw me in at the deep end in France. They gave me a co-worker on my first day to do lighting tests with, and he didn't speak any English, I didn't speak any French, and that's basically the whole point, was that by forcing us to actually communicate with each other, it meant we had to dig out all the basic knowledge of the language we had, and it worked really well. It did. No, I didn't have to dress up as Mickey Mouse. It was strictly in the strictly working on the sort of lighting on rides, and that was it really. And control systems, the lighting modules, and a little bit of the software laterally for things like Spectral Magic and the American Park. But yeah. So drug of choice, alcohol. And not a huge amount. It may look like I drink an awful lot online, but that's usually because I'm making the videos at the weekends and things like that. So yeah. Someone says, "Are you a snooker fan?" No, but you know what? They do have a pool table at this place we're staying at the moment, which is quite interesting. Ever been to the Isle of Arran? No, I've not been to the Isle of Arran. It'd be good to travel about a bit. These days, because me and my brother are looking after my mum, we don't get holidays as such. I mean, this for me is almost a holiday, even though I'm working, just because it gets me a wee break away. And then I have to go back and look after mum, and Ralph takes a break away. So once things have changed and we've got more freedom, there'll be more holidays. I'll be travelling about the world a bit. I've never been to Sweden. One of my relatives lives in Sweden though. Favourite rum, generic supermarket rum. That's an easy one to answer. Favourite vodka, generic supermarket vodka. Favourite gin, generic supermarket gin. I have no class. That's basically what it is. I've been in America a lot, mainly Florida, but also Las Vegas. But you know, I was strictly a technical tourist. When I go to theme parks, I can't help myself. I always end up looking at the lighting and the control systems. And likewise, when I went to Las Vegas, all I was really interested in there was the technology behind the scenes. It's much more interesting. I ended up visiting Fisher Technical and getting a guided tour of some of their jobs that they were doing installation of theatres, which was quite interesting because even though like you think that theatres might be different from one part of the world to the other, getting taken up to the grid in a casino theatre in Las Vegas, it might as well have been going in the grid of a British theatre in Edinburgh or London. They're very, very similar. It's very, it's very standardised. It's quite interesting that they are so standard. Right, I see this stream has now gone on past an hour, and I originally intended it only to last 10 or 15 minutes, but you know what? Time flies. So I'm going to end this stream now. So I'd like to thank you for joining me on this stream, and we'll do this again because yeah, it was definitely good, and I have to work out how to slow down the comment feed. I'll do a little bit of research about that on the internet now, so that I know how to do it. So have a good night and sleep well.